Hey there, it's Steve with TUA Outdoors. I'm here to show you how to set up a tent. So today we're going to be working with the Kelty Tempest 2. What I'm going to be showing you are basic principles that are going to apply to any tent you may want to add to your tent supply. All right, so as you can see here, we're on campus at Ambler campus here. I'm identifying a good area to set my tent up, looking for a relatively flat area. Ideally, I want to be in a designated campsite, so that's something that's designed to be impacted by human use and where we're setting up our tents, because we always want to minimize our impact to the environment. So I'm looking around here. I found a relatively flat spot. I'm also looking around. I want to make sure, we had some storms the last couple of days. I want to make sure there's no dead tree limbs that could fall on me in the middle of the night, because that's not a fun way to wake up. And so I want to look around, make sure the area is safe. Nothing's going to fall on me, any dead tree limbs, anything like that. And I also want to check the area real quick and take some time to actually see, make sure that there's no branches, rocks, anything like that underneath me, because that's not fun, especially if you had a long day of hiking and all that. So I'm going to clear that out, make sure that's good, and we have a nice clear spot. So I think we're ready to get our tent set up. So I'm going to take my tent bag here. Now, the first thing we have here, this is an aftermarket add-on. This is just a basic tarp that you can find at really any store. I'm going to set this out here. And one of the reasons to make friends while camping is it's a lot easier to set things up when you have somebody else out here. Now, if you notice here, I'm actually setting my stuff on top here. That's because it's not super windy, but you never know when a gust is going to come through and it can blow things away here. And full disclosure, I did not put this tent away, but I'm going to show you how to put a tent away here. So playing with this knot here. Perfect. So these are our poles, which we don't need just yet, so I'm going to set them aside. All right, so now I'm going to grab our tent body here. This is a little mesh thing that you can put on the inside of your tent. It's just hanging out. So again, make sure I don't lose that. So I'm going to tuck it in this bag here. So we'll need our stakes here. Perfect. I'm going to set them again on top of the bag so it doesn't blow away. So I'm laying everything out. You can see I have a little bit of blue sticking out. I'm going to fix that as we get to the next step here, because we want the ground cover completely underneath our tent so we don't get any water that rolls underneath us. So now what I'm going to do, because there's not a lot of wind here, so I'm going to wait to stake the tent until afterwards. If it was a really windy day, if I was on the top of a mountain or something like that, I might stake the tent down first and then readjust once I get everything set up. So I'm going to go ahead and take our poles out here, and we have 2 sets. All right, and they snap very easily for us. So I'm going to find one corner. This is what's called our grommet here. I'm going to stick the pole into the grommet. And again, this is where it's nice to have a buddy. And I'm going to find that other grommet here and stick that in. Perfect. And now I'm going to go ahead and I want to start at the top. You can see here, this is the top piece. You got 2 hooks here, and you want to work your way down to the bottom. The reason we start from the top and work our way down to the bottom is that minimizes the wear on the materials of the tent. So it's all about prolonging the life of our tents. Perfect. So we got one pole through. Look at that. It's like magic, it just stays right there. So if you notice, this got snagged a little bit there, so I just wanted to make sure I fixed that up before I put any tension on it. Again, prolonging the life of the poles here. If you saw, these kind of snapped into place. So inside the poles, we have a nice little elastic cord that does stretch out and wear over time. So that's something you want to keep aware of as you're going through. And you want to make sure it doesn't snap when you're in the middle of a trip because it's kind of tricky to weave back through, but we'll be showing you how to do some of those repairs in later videos. All right, so I got all my clips engaged on my tent. And if you notice, this is actually why I didn't want to stake it right away, is I want to readjust this a little bit, make sure my tarp's underneath. What I also like to do is before I make sure that I want to sleep here before everything's staked out and I put the fly on, is I'm actually going to lay down and make sure that I didn't miss any rocks or pebbles or anything like that. So, and if you have a buddy that's setting up the tent with you, they can work on the opposite corner as you, so you can ensure that you get really good tension here. I'm going to pull away. And if you notice the angle, I'm not coming straight down. I'm not coming to the back. I want to go at about a 45-degree angle away from the tent. So, like I said, to maximize that tension, I'm going to work across the other way. Pull that nice and taut. So now we're going to take our last corner. Look at that, good tension. Again, 45-degree angle. And if you notice, I was able to just push that right down my hand. I see a lot of people that are like, oh, you got to pound the stake in and all that. If you identify a good spot and you use that 45-degree angle, your stake's going to go in very easily. At least it should for you. All right, so we got our tent set up. As you can see, this is straight up mesh. So if it rained on me, that's going to go right through. On a hot sunny day, I might want that and just want the shelter for bug protection. But because we do have some clouds and some rain forecasted, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put what's called the rain fly on top of my tent. The other thing I'm considering right now is I now have this empty bag here. I don't want this to blow away because I want to keep my tent nice and organized, which having a nice tent bag makes it easy to do so. So as you saw, everything just kind of blew out and it could blow away. So one of the things I like to do, since we have our tent set up, it's not raining on us, is just go ahead and stick that right inside so we don't lose our bag there. Perfect. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the corners. So different models of tents are going to have different attachment structures. This one in particular has buckles that we're going to clip to. So we're going to find the corners. So an important note here, I did that on purpose so you could see it. Because we only have one door on this tent, we want to make sure that we have our door flap, which is this zipper piece here, that goes in the front of our tent. So I'm going to go ahead and get that there. Whee. I'm going to go ahead and immediately clip a corner in because you can see our wind's picking up for us for the full effect here. All right, nice. So I got both my corners clipped in. Now I can go ahead and bring this over. So real quick here, I'm gonna actually loosen this so you can see there's a lot of tension on there. So I wanna loosen this up a little bit and then we can adjust this once we have everything set up here. So we're not, again, putting strain on our materials. So one of the things we want to make sure we do is, you can see there's all these straps here. These are what are called guy lines. We're going to go ahead and stake those out here in a bit, and that's going to give us ventilation. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stake out the door, which this particular tent here has a nice feature that I like to look for in things, which is called a vestibule. The reason this is nice is because this gives you a little bit of extra space that you can put your boots underneath, you can put backpacks underneath, you can put some gear underneath, that sort of thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and cinch this up just a little bit. Cool. And then you can see here, the door opens up nicely. And then you have plenty of space here for 2 people to store their gear. So as I mentioned, you have guy lines. Most tents nowadays come with a little clip that automatically adjusts for you. I'm going to show you a knot that I prefer that holds a little bit better. There's actually 2 different knots we can use for that. But for right now, for your purposes, I'm just going to demo how to do this. So this is an adjustable feature here. So if you're holding onto the plastic bit, that's going to slide. Some tents it might be metal, or if we're using a knot, it's the same principle. But then when I have tension on the loopy part, proper technical term, it's going to hold in place. So that helps me adjust the tension. What I want to do is I want to make sure there's room for adjustment, because your tent fly is going to expand and compress depending on if you get some precipitation, you might get some condensation in the morning, that sort of thing. So you want to be able to adjust it, because especially, I think you probably saw me drip some sweat there. You want to have that ventilation so you can not be wet from your sweat and condensation on the inside. So cool, perfect. So adjust that tension up. So, and as I'm walking around my tent, I'm making sure I got good coverage, all that. Sweet. All right, solid. So, and first thing I'm gonna do, make sure I get this bag in my bag of bags so I don't lose it. But this is pretty much how you set up a tent. Pretty easy to do. Just follow those basic principles, taking your time, making sure everything's laid out. If you take a few extra seconds to make sure everything's adjusted before you actually lay your sleeping bag, your sleeping pad, all that gear out, that's gonna give you a much more comfortable night in the long run. So take that extra time, make sure everything's adjusted properly before you just get in there and do it. But that's how you set up a tent.